My brother sneered across the dinner table, saying I had 7 days to pack up and leave. Our parents sat quietly, not saying a word. I pulled out the property documents. In response, I said, "Actually, you all have 1 day to get out." Their utensils clattered to the plates when I spoke. "Hey, Reddit. Before we get into it, I've noticed the channel's been losing some steam lately. Subscribing is the easiest way to help us out. It's fast, free, and really boosts our growing community. Now let's dive into the story. I never thought Betrayal would come over a meal of grilled pork and scalloped potatoes, but life has a way of delivering its harshest lessons in the most ordinary moments. It was a cold Sunday night, the kind where the wind howled against the shutters and the house smelled of thyme and warmth. I'd just finished arranging the table for dinner. Mom was by the hearth, leafing through a worn-out tabloid. Dad was glued to the nightly news, and my older brother Ethan was, as usual, late. We were supposed to eat at 6, but he sauntered in at past, flashing a smug smile, sporting a pricey watch, and carrying a bottle of fancy whiskey nobody asked for. This house, our family's anchor, had weathered storms. It nearly slipped away twice, once during the 2008 financial crash, and again when medical bills from Dad's operation buried my parents. Ethan was nowhere to be found during those times. He was off in New York, chasing his high-flying career, only calling when it suited him, never showing up when things got tough. I was the one who stayed. I worked 2 jobs, slept in the tiny spare room, and funneled every cent into fixing the creaky floors, repairing the pipes, and keeping the bank from foreclosing. I didn't do it for praise. I did it because it needed doing, because I couldn't let our childhood home fall apart, because I believed families stood by each other even when it was hard. So when Ethan sat down, barely glancing at me, and declared mid-bite that I had a week to move out, I thought he was pulling my leg. "You've got 7 days to clear out," he said coolly, sipping his whiskey like he hadn't just upended my world. "Mom and Dad are aging. They need calm, not you cluttering the den with your work and causing stress." I stared, my fork halted mid-air. The words didn't sink in at first. I looked to Mom and Dad, waiting for them to chuckle or tell him to knock it off. But they didn't. Mom stared at her plate. Dad mumbled something about the house feeling cramped these days. My chest tightened. A chill settled in my gut. "Cramped?" I said louder than intended. "I paid off the mortgage last year. I handled everything while you were too busy playing big shot in another city." Ethan shrugged. "You did what any kid would. But it's not about money now. It's about what's best for them." "Best for them?" I snapped. "You didn't even call when Dad was in the hospital. I bathed him, cooked for them, paid for meds when insurance wouldn't. You show up with some overpriced whiskey and think you're in charge?" Ethan didn't blink. He pulled a folder from his briefcase and slid it across the table. "It's done. I had a lawyer draw up the papers. We're putting the house back in Mom and Dad's names. They'll decide who stays, not you." My hands shook as I opened the folder. The documents were real, cleverly worded, and legally formatted. Ethan was trying to undo the deed I'd legally secured when my parents transferred the house to me 2 years ago as part of the financial overhaul I funded. I let out a sharp laugh. "You think this will stand in court? The title's in my name. I refinanced it under my credit. I've paid taxes, utilities, insurance, everything. This isn't your house, and it hasn't been theirs for years." Mom finally spoke, her voice faint. "We just want calm, sweetheart. We're tired of the strain." "Strain?" I said, stunned. "You mean me living here? Me existing?" I looked around the table and saw it clearly. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. It was calculated. Secret conversations I wasn't part of. Late-night calls I didn't hear. Ethan hadn't come back to help. He came to claim what he thought was his. And my parents, for reasons I couldn't yet grasp, were letting him. I shoved my chair back and stood. "You want to play legal? Fine. I have the receipts, the bank records, the mortgage papers. This house was sinking and I rebuilt it from scratch. You think you can push me out of the home I saved? You're in for a surprise." Ethan stood, trying to loom over me like when we were kids. He was always the favorite, the charismatic jock, the golden son. Me, I was the quiet one, the nerd, the fallback. But I wasn't a kid anymore. and I didn't back down. "You're being irrational," he said smoothly. "Just leave quietly and save them the hassle." "No," I said, locking eyes with him. "You have 1 day to leave, all of you, or I'll have you escorted out. I'll call the sheriff myself." The silence that followed was deafening. "You're kicking out your own parents?" Mom gasped. "I'm taking back what's mine," I said. "I didn't want this, but you gave me no choice." I turned and walked to my room, locking the door, my pulse racing like a drum. But for the first time in years, I wasn't scared. I was done being the loyal son who gave everything only to be treated like a guest in the home he'd saved. They'd underestimated me, and they were about to learn how far I'd go to protect what I'd built with my own hands. This house wasn't just wood and stone, it was my line in the sand, and they'd crossed it. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? My childhood home had turned into a war zone, and the people I thought would stand by me had turned against me. The betrayal looped in my mind. Ethan's smug grin, Mom's silence, Dad's refusal to meet my gaze. I sat on my bed, staring at old family photos on the wall. In one, I was 7, grinning while holding Ethan's hand at the park. In another, we were gathered around a holiday table, smiling. Strange how those faces now felt like strangers. At sunrise, I got dressed, grabbed the folder of records I'd gathered, every receipt, every tax document, every proof of payment, and drove to my attorney's office. Mr. Larson, a gentle older man, had helped me navigate taking legal ownership of the house when my parents were drowning in debt. I'd refinanced it in my name to stop the bank from taking it, signing an agreement that transferred the title to me in exchange for clearing the remaining mortgage. When I explained what happened, he wasn't shocked. "Families don't always break over money," he said, scanning the folder. "Sometimes it's about who feels they deserve what." He promised to draft a cease and desist order immediately and assured me I had every right to demand they leave. By noon, I was back home. Ethan's car was still in the driveway. My parents were in the living room, acting like nothing was wrong. Mom watching a soap opera, Dad flipping through a magazine. I stood in the doorway and said firmly, "You have 48 hours to leave. If you're still here, I'll have the police remove you. I'm not joking." Mom looked at me like I'd betrayed her. "You can't mean this. We raised you in this house." "And I saved it," I shot back. "You lost any claim to it when you signed it over and let me carry the debt alone." Ethan stood, trying to intimidate me again. "You'd really throw out your own parents?" "I've already called a locksmith," I said. "The locks will be changed tonight. If you want to avoid the humiliation, start packing now." He scoffed, but something in my voice must have hit home, because he stormed upstairs without another word. Dad followed, grumbling. Mom just sat there, shaking her head. "I loved you so much," she whispered. "You loved what I did for you," I said. "Not me." That night, I had the locks changed and installed a security system with a camera at the front door. I didn't sleep, but this time it was from fatigue, not fear. The house was silent for the first time in years, not peaceful, but still. I could feel the weight of what was coming. The next morning, they started packing. It was surreal watching my parents carry boxes out of the home I'd fought to keep. I didn't offer help, and they didn't ask. Ethan was the last to leave. He paused at the door, looking around like he was trying to hold on to the place. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes, it is," I replied. "You ended it when you tried to take it from me." He gave a bitter chuckle but didn't argue. He walked away and I shut the door behind him, locking it with a sense of closure. The weeks that followed were the loneliest I'd ever known. Word spread through the family. Some supported me, most didn't. I was called selfish, cruel, ungrateful. My aunt sent a long message saying that no matter what happened, kicking out my parents made me heartless. I didn't reply. What no one seemed to grasp was that I didn't choose this. I didn't want any of it. I'd given everything to this house, this family. I'd stood in front of their struggles to protect them. I didn't do it for control or glory. I did it because I thought we were a team. But they weren't. And when someone shows they'll discard you the moment you're no longer useful, you learn to stop sacrificing yourself for them. One day, a letter came from Mom. Her handwriting was the same, gentle and cursive, like the notes she used to tuck in my lunchbox as a kid. I opened it carefully. It not an apology. Far from it. She wrote that she forgave me for what I'd done, that she hoped I'd come to my senses someday. She and Dad had moved into Ethan's apartment, which had a small spare room. It was cramped, but doable, she said. She ended with, "We still love you, even if we don't understand you anymore." I crumpled the letter and threw it away. I didn't need forgiveness from people who never asked for mine. I didn't need to be understood by those who never tried. Weeks turned to months. The silence from my family grew longer. Holidays passed, no cards, no calls. I spent Christmas alone in the house I'd saved. I put up lights, cooked a meal, sat by the fire, and read. And you know what? It was calm. Eventually, I turned the spare room into a workspace and the attic into a small art studio. I started running my business from home full-time. Every wall I repainted, every fixture I repaired, every floorboard I polished, I did for myself, not for approval, not for praise. For the first time, this house felt like mine in more than just title. It felt like home. I still think of them sometimes. I wonder if they miss me, if they ever see what they lost. But I don't reach out. I don't check their social media. I don't answer when Ethan's number appears on my phone every few months. Because I've learned that love without respect is just control in disguise. And sometimes choosing peace means choosing to stand alone. This house was built on more than bricks and beams. It was built on sacrifice, loyalty, and effort. And no matter what anyone says, that can never be taken away.